So China is cutting tariffs on imported cars. Is that Trump winning?
No. I mean, I think what it is, it's China basically doing trade negotiations much more skillfully than the White House is able to do them. I mean, it's a nice gesture, right? So the tariff that the Chinese had operated for many, many years was about 25%. It's coming down to 15%. So for luxury car makers, very few of which basically are American. I
was about to make that. They do make, though companies like BMW do make a lot of cars in the United States, many of which do go to China.
This is true. Yeah. This is true. So but American, so it could have an impact on, obviously, BMW's plants and so on.
Well, BMW is very happy this morning. It says it sees the China move as, quote, a strong signal the market is opening, and it sees an even more dynamic level when it comes to the Chinese markets.
Yeah. So no question about it. You know, for the car companies, particularly those at the upper end, I think it's very good news. It is it's a nice and it's a positive gesture for the Chinese to, put out there and say we're being constructive and so on and so forth. But actually, in the round, right, you look at the White House's trade strategy so far this year, and particularly during the last few weeks, and you can say this is just a bunch of charlatans. They don't really understand what they're doing. They're divided in terms of, the pitches that they have kind of given to the Chinese side. And they basically essentially settled almost for the status quo that they had before they started. So that's really quite appalling and quite embarrassing, I think, actually.
Yeah, but Richard, I mean, the end game is much bigger, right? The end game is the kind of the arms race on who will build driverless cars. The end game is artificial intelligence. So this is kind of, they find the battleground, but is it, China dominating, or will it be US dominating all this AI in 20 years from now?
So from a market perspective, we're in an environment of sustained global growth, one of which the US is continuing to surprise to the upside, one where China has actually surprised significantly the upside this year. That's created a robust environment where returns for investors are increasingly being driven by growth. So when we think about what could derail that, then the main focus has been on an escalation of trade tensions. What we're seeing, I think, is encouraging, is that on the issue of a trade war, actually we're seeing evidence of there is a deal to be done, actually I think that the announcements over the weekend around agriculture and energy are actually much more significant than the announcements about autos today. I think there's progress about national security in the US. The area which I think is still highly uncertain is about who's going to win technology dominance on a longer horizon.
But is it smoke and mirrors, or is it actually a deal to be done, but the deal could be in 30, 40, 50 years? And so it's so far in the horizon that actually it's not a clear win now.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure that I agree with that. I don't think there is a deal. I don't think there are small deals to be done in a kind of a much bigger picture, which I think is going to remain tense and very prone to conflict for the foreseeable future. Obviously, the other news that there has been is the kind of it's almost in the background, actually, about ZTE, the Chinese company, the telecommunications company, where I think, the announcement, well, it's not an announcement, but the speculation is that the White House has agreed to kind of lift the sanctions on ZTE if there are changes to the board in ZTE and ZTE pays an additional fine. So you could put robots or monkeys on the board of ZTE. It really wouldn't make any difference to the outcome. And I think that the issue about technology and about industrial policy in China, that's really what this is all about. I think the trade, automobiles, sorghum, soybeans, I mean, there's a lot of noise around this, actually, but what this is really about is about, America's objections, not all of which are unjustified, by the way, to the role that state capitalism in China plays in kind of fixing the arrangements in world trade and managed trade.